Hi, third graders. Welcome to our second lesson in the classification of animals. This lesson is called Cold-Blooded and Warm-Blooded Animals. So what have we already learned? Scientists classify animals, and the name for this branch of science is called taxonomy. So taxonomy is the classification of animals. Classifying means grouping things together based on how they are alike and separating them by how they are different. Taxonomists classify animals based on their characteristics. We classify animals so that we can learn more about them. So yesterday, Rattenborough introduced us to his 5 friends: Tabitha Toad, Hilda Hippo, Ebenezer Egret, Polo Piranha, and Anna Anaconda. The names of Rattenborough's friends all use a literary device called alliteration, in which the friend's first name and last name begin with the same letter, letter sound except for Ebenezer Egret, right? So that's called alliteration, when you have multiple words that start with the same sound. We find that a lot in poetry. It sounds really good in poetry. So let's name the 5 vertebrate groups of animals in which Rattenborough's 5 friends belong. Well, Tabitha Toad is an amphibian, Hilda Hippo is a mammal, Ebenezer Egret is a bird, Polo Piranha is a fish, and Anna Anaconda is a reptile. Which invertebrate group has the greatest number of species that have been identified by taxonomists? That's right, the insect group has the greatest number of species on Earth. They make up over 95% of all the animals on Earth. So that's what we've learned so far. And we're going to listen to today's read aloud and find out what it means for animals to be cold-blooded or warm-blooded, and how taxonomists use that to classify animals. Okay, so think about, what does it mean to be cold-blooded or warm-blooded? Listen carefully to see if you are right. Hi boys and girls, I have brought along my slideshow once again. Today we're going to look at slides of my friends, some of whom are cold-blooded animals and some of whom are warm-blooded animals. By the sound of it, you would think that warm-blooded animals have warm blood and cold-blooded animals have cold blood, but in fact that is not the case. The body temperature of a cold-blooded animal changes according to the surroundings or environment of that animal, whereas a warm-blooded animal maintains about the same temperature all of the time. I heard that you are keeping a chart to sort or classify animals into groups. What a great idea! You are practicing taxonomy, the study of classifying organisms exactly like taxonomists do. You're going to be learning how to sort animals in lots of different ways. Today we are going to sort these 5 vertebrate groups into 2 smaller groups. By discovering some common characteristics, you'll learn how to tell which animals are cold-blooded and which animals are warm-blooded. Now I'd like to help you understand a little more about cold-blooded animals. Polo Piranha lives in the country of Colombia on the continent of South America. Can you find Colombia on this map? Go all the way down to South America and you can see it right here. Colombia is next to Venezuela and Ecuador, and under Central America at the top of South America. He's a fish. His body temperature, the measure of how warm his body is on the inside, changes with his surroundings. Right now, his temperature is the same as the water in which he is swimming. When you go swimming, chances are the water is colder than your body temperature. Does the water feel hot or cold when you jump into a pool or river? Unless it's a hot tub, right? It's probably going to be colder than your body, so you're going to feel the cold when you jump in. I suppose it may depend on the day, but my guess is that the water is usually a bit cooler than you. Polo does not ever feel cold in water because there's no difference between his temperature and the water temperature where he lives. Have any of you ever used a thermometer? I know everyone here has. Everyone that's been to school has, because they're taking temperatures at the door. Perhaps when you are sick, your parents or a nurse might measure your temperature with a thermometer. When warm-blooded people get ill, their temperatures often rise or go up. A person's normal body temperature is about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and it remains constant or about the same most of the time. That's very different from polo. The way in which an animal's body temperature is controlled determines whether it is cold-blooded or warm-blooded. My friend Polo told me that his internal or inside body temperature is never constant. It does not stay the same. He cannot heat his body from the inside like you. So his temperature must change with his surroundings in order for his body to work properly. He becomes hot when it is hot around him and cold when it is cold around him. So you see, although you and Polo are both vertebrates, you also have differences. One of you is cold-blooded and one of you is warm-blooded. Are you cold-blooded or are you warm-blooded? You're right. You are warm-blooded. So that makes Polo, yes, cold-blooded. Most fish are cold-blooded. In fact, most animals on Earth are cold-blooded. Two of my other friends are cold-blooded as well. Does anyone know who else among these is cold-blooded? That's right, Anna Anaconda and Tabitha Toad. Great answers. Next, I'd like to tell you a little about Anna Anaconda. Like Polo, Anna lives in the rainforests of South America too, in the country of Peru. Do you see Peru on the map at the very bottom of what we can see? Right? It has actually borders Colombia and Ecuador. In fact, she shares Polo's river home. But she is not a fish. She can swim, but she lives on land and is not dependent upon the water to stay alive. Does anyone remember what group of animals Anna belongs to? That's right, Anna Anaconda is classified as a reptile, and she shares some of Polo's characteristics. They're both cold-blooded, but that doesn't mean that they don't enjoy being warm. Anna loves the heat. Her body is very long indeed, and she told me that one of her favorite things to do is to bask in the sun. The sun helps her stay warm, and her body soaks up the heat from the warm ground as well. Because she cannot control her own body temperature, Anna depends upon the sun and her warm surroundings to keep properly warm. In fact, my other cold-blooded friend, Tabitha Toad, likes the sun too. Frogs and toads share some of the same characteristics as fish and reptiles. They use their surroundings to maintain or keep constant the proper body temperature. Yes, indeed, Tabitha Toad is cold-blooded, just like Polo and Anna. And like Polo and Anna, Tabitha is very comfortable around water. She comes from the Amazon rainforest in the country of Brazil. So look at this map and you can see Brazil at the bottom right. It's a very big country, and we can see the different rivers in Brazil. She lives in the Amazon River. Okay, and you can also see Colombia and Peru, where our other friends live. But just because her home is near the largest river in the world, it doesn't mean she lives in the water all the time. Tabitha and all toads are actually more comfortable on land, whereas frogs prefer to be wet. Tabitha is an amphibian, which means that she can live both in and out of water. So there you have it. fish, reptile, and amphibian, three groups of cold-blooded creatures. Their body temperatures change depending upon where they are, becoming warm when their surroundings are warm and cold when it's cold around them. Because they do not have constant body temperatures, they can easily become too hot or too cold. They have developed characteristics and behaviors so that they can live in certain habitats. All right, habitats are specific homes of living things. So they have their own homes, their habitats. My three friends do not live in very cold climates, but some cold-blooded animals do. In order to stay warm in colder climates, some snakes huddle or crowd together, like you can see in this picture, hibernating underground during the winter months. Some turtles dig down deep into the warm mud and hibernate at the bottom of streams and ponds to stay warm when it is cold outside. I'm thinking that this turtle is searching for just the right spot in which to hibernate along this muddy bottom. In winter, there is less food for animals to forage or search for, so it is a good time for them to hibernate or become inactive and live off the stored energy in their bodies. Cold-blooded animals that live in very hot climates must do something like hibernate too. Instead of hibernation, which describes the process of keeping warm-blooded and cold-blooded animals from freezing when it's cold outside, the term estivation is used to describe the process of keeping only cold-blooded animals from overheating when it's very hot outside or losing too much moisture during very dry periods. For example, crocodiles estivate or become inactive when it is hot. They stay in water or mud to cool off and escape the heat of the very hot climates where many of them live. Some snails estivate to stay moist during parts of the summer dry season. So everybody, let's see what you have learned from seeing our cold-blooded friends Polo, Anna, and Tabitha. If the temperature outside is 45 degrees Fahrenheit, what are their body temperatures going to be? Right, 45 degrees. Cold-blooded animals do not have a constant internal body temperature. It changes with their surroundings. Now, warm-blooded animals like you and me are much different. If the outside temperature is 45 degrees Fahrenheit, what is your internal temperature going to be? It's about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit because our bodies regulate our internal body temperature and keep them constant. We are able to live in both very cold and very hot habitats. Most of the time, warm-blooded animals don't even have to think about regulating their body temperatures. They use the food they eat to produce energy inside their bodies. Sometimes, however, in especially cold or hot temperatures, they need to do a little extra something to help regulate their temperature. What do you do to help your body stay warm when it is very cold outside? Yes, you may put on extra layers of clothing, move around, sit by the fire, or drink some hot chocolate. Who can tell me what you do to cool off on a hot day? Yes, you may take off some extra clothing, lie still, go for a swim, or have a cold drink. Dogs pant and humans sweat to cool off as well. Like people, other animals seek out the shade of trees to cool themselves. Some animals, like the elephant, can fan themselves with their large ears. The large, thin ears of some animals are good places for the heat to escape, which cools their bodies even more. Let's learn a little about two of my other friends, my warm-blooded friends, a bird, Ebenezer egret, and a fellow mammal, Hilda hippo. They both live on the continent of Africa. Ebenezer in the country of South Africa and Hilda in the East African country of Tanzania. Mammals and birds produce their own body heat internally, which keeps their body temperatures constant. So we're going to see some ways these warm-blooded animals help their bodies hold onto their warmth when it's cold outside and keep cool when it's very hot outside. For instance, a body characteristic of a whale is that it has blubber, which gives it extra help in staying warm. This allows a whale to have a wider range of habitats because it can swim in colder waters. So on this map, you can see over here, Tanzania, that's where Hilda Hippo's from, and South Africa, where Ebenezer egret is from. And I've been to South Africa. It's beautiful there. One thing's for sure, Ebenezer egret does not put on a winter coat like you do when it's cold outside. Of course, he doesn't need to put on any extra coat because he already has a brilliant coat of feathers. Feathers help keep Ebenezer warm. Want to know an interesting fact that Ebenezer shared with me while I was visiting South Africa? Egret's beautiful white feathers were once prized by hat makers who used them for the sake of women's hat fashion and beauty, not warmth. Imagine that. It's not cool that they took the bird's feathers for hats. Birds that live in cold climates sometimes travel south by the winter to make it easier to stay warm and find more available food. Migration is a behavior or something that an animal does to help it stay warm. Often physical characteristics help an animal stay warm. Ebenezer wears a coat of feathers, and I wear a coat of fur. Are you wondering what Hilda Hippo uses for a little additional warmth because she doesn't have fur? Let's take a look and see. I have a bit of news for you. In the hot tropical climates of Africa, where Hilda Hippo lives, trying to stay cold is a more common occurrence than trying to stay warm. Hilda's body design is perfect for helping her stay cool. She has a nice layer of blubber that insulates her and helps her float. Hippopotami spend most of their time in the water of lakes and rivers to escape the heat. Just so you know, the plural of hippopotamus is hippopotamuses. Hippopotami is also an acceptable plural form. So you could say hippopotamus, or you could say hippopotamuses, or you could say hippopotami. Can you see any other characteristics of the hippopotamus that help it stay in the water for long periods of time? Good observation. Notice how having its nostrils, eyes, and ears on top of its head lets the hippopotamus keep most of its body underwater where it can stay cool. Ebenezer also uses water to stay cool. Even though egrets can't swim, they do spend a lot of time wading in the water, mostly to get their dinner. They feast on fish and toads and plenty of insects in order to store up the energy needed to control their body temperatures. Well, everybody, our time is up for today. You have learned a lot about the taxonomy of cold-blooded and warm-blooded animals, so now you can fill it in our classification chart. Next time we meet, we'll continue with our slideshow and sorting our animal friends into groups, those with backbones and those without. Do you think Hilda Hippo has a backbone? How about if you mull this over until next time and be ready to share your predictions? I can't wait to see all of you again and continue with the show. Bye for now. So what do we mean when we say an animal is cold-blooded? It means its body temperature changes with its surroundings and is not regulated internally. It is not constant, so it changes with how either the water or the air around it is. Describe how cold-blooded animals warm their bodies. Some ways they warm their bodies are they bask in the sun, like our friend Anna Anaconda lays out in the sun. They seek out warm places and they hibernate. Describe how they cool their bodies. They estivate, or they seek shade, water, mud, or other places with cool temperatures. What do we mean when we say an animal is warm-blooded? Warm-blooded means it regulates its body temperature internally on the inside to keep a constant internal temperature all the time. Describe some ways that warm-blooded animals help their bodies stay warm when it is especially cold outside. What are some things you do? They eat food, hibernate, have feathers or fur, migrate, and huddle together. Describe some things that a warm-blooded animal does to help its body cool off when the outside temperatures are especially hot. They could sweat, pant, drink water, or go in cool water. What groups of animals did you hear about that are cold-blooded? Do you remember? Fish, amphibians, and reptiles. What groups of animals did you hear about that are warm-blooded? What animals are warm-blooded? Birds and mammals. So we're going to add to our classification chart during our afternoon wrap-up. So remember which animals are cold-blooded and which animals are warm-blooded. Warm-blooded animals such as dogs and whales don't have clothes to wear like humans do. What kind of coverings do warm-blooded animals have to help keep the warmth in their bodies? Fur coats, thick feathers, or blubber like a whale. You have heard that some animals hibernate during the winter to stay warm. What are some other reasons animals hibernate? Well, they save their energy during the winter, so they don't have to eat as much because there's not as much food in the winter. In the read aloud today, you learned that some cold-blooded animals estivate when it is hot in order to survive. Give an example of a cold-blooded animal and what it might do to estivate. Turtles and frogs may dig down into the mud, become inactive, and stay on the bottom of a pond until it gets cooler out. How are hibernation and estivation similar? During both, animals become inactive. Both processes help protect from extreme weather conditions. How are they different? Animals hibernate when they are cold and estivate when they are hot and or dry. Warm-blooded and cold-blooded animals both hibernate, but only cold-blooded animals estivate. You learned that humans are warm-blooded animals. Why is it that humans are warm-blooded animals? Why is it that humans, as warm-blooded animals, can live in many different environments? Why can we live in different countries with different temperatures? Well, warm-blooded animals regulate their body temperatures internally. Energy from food helps warm them. They add and remove layers of clothing. They heat or cool their home, right? Right now, you might be starting to turn the heat on in your house because it's getting cooler outside to help keep you warm. Our word for today is constant. Say the word constant. In the read aloud, you heard a person's normal body temperature is about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and it remains constant. Something that is constant does not change very much. It stays steady and even. Miguel's grandfather is a constant support to him when he needs help with his math homework. So that means he's always there to help him with his math homework. All right, we will read this poem together later. Good job, third graders.